following program is a podcast1.com production.
Your healthy radio addiction starts now.
Power to the people!
The Laura Ingraham Show.
That's what's going on. Nothing's fine, I'm torn. I'm all out of faith. This is how I feel. I'm cold and I am shamed, lying naked on the floor.
You do not use the threat of shutting down government to try to advance your policy agenda. That's just not the way it works.
You could say we're shutting down the government. We're not going to raise the debt ceiling until you pass immigration reform. It would be governmental chaos.
I know you.
Well, it's not a shutdown over DACA. How many more times do I have to say? We have issues in terms of the funding.
Americans know why the dysfunction is occurring. A dysfunctional president. Hence, we are in a Trump shutdown.
You are listening to the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. The Democrats are torn here. Why are they torn? Why does this song make sense to play? Because they have their far left base they got to deal with the DACA. They want as many new Democrat voters as possible. On the other hand, they know that you start withholding pay from the U.S. military for long enough, and there will be hell to pay. 855-40-LAURA. Boy, we have a lot going on today. You're not going to want to miss 1 minute of the show. Tonight on the Ingraham Angle, ditto. Back from California and Las Vegas. We had a great trip last week. Learned a lot more about the Golden State and the horror show of supermajority governance that they have out there. And we're going to bring you more of that coming up. How many of you believe that Donald Trump should listen to a group that's called bipartisan that is trying to apparently negotiate an end to this shutdown that includes Lindsey Graham and Jeff Flake? How do you even call that a bipartisan group? Neither Graham nor Flake represents the president's view on immigration. In fact, they are 180 from the president's view on immigration, 180 degrees on the other side. And yet the media slavishly all weekend long cater to Lindsey Graham and Jeff Flake. Lindsey Graham going all over television, trashing conservatives, trashing people who believe we should not give mass amnesty for a promise of enforcement. It's BS, and everybody knows it. And we're supposed to say, oh, Lindsey Graham, oh, he's part of the bipartisan deal. We've got to listen. Jeff Flake didn't even vote, by the way, for the president. And Lamar Alexander, what did I tell you about Lamar Alexander? Why did I work and help his challenger, his primary challenger? This was 4 years ago, whatever it was. And he ultimately was not successful. But why did I work for him? Because I knew when push comes to shove, Lamar Alexander, who is 77, 78 years old, always stands up for the Chamber of Commerce. He is not for the American citizen. He is for the Chamber. Whatever the Chamber of Commerce wants, Lamar Alexander will give him. So if it's more cheap labor, absolutely Lamar Alexander will work hard for that. But the idea that those three buffoons should be in any way engaged in negotiations on this, if I were Trump, I'd say, you know something? Here's my point man on this, Tom Cotton. Any negotiation that does not include Tom Cotton is a waste of your time. Open this government, let the military get paid, stop making our country look like a laughingstock, which you are making it look like, Chuck Schumer. I will deal with Tom Cotton dealing with one other Democrat. Okay, Tom Cotton can deal with Joe Manchin. How's that for a bipartisan deal? Joe Manchin and Tom Cotton can sit down, and here's what you need to do. We're not going to do dreamer legalization unless you end chain migration, you end this visa lottery, and you stop the madness of the absurd magnet at the border that we have right now. And that means that wall is not going to be, there's not an authorization for a wall. There is an appropriation for the wall that is $20 billion plus. I think $20 billion is not enough, but I'll take $20 billion. But right now, what Schumer offered is an authorization. That's very different. As Mick Mulvaney pointed out yesterday in the Sunday shows, that's not funding. We had authorization for a fence/wall in 2006. Well, where's that fence/wall? We don't have it. We had 17 miles built to that? So that happened during George W. Bush, an authorization. We never had funding. I would let this go as long as possible. If I were Donald Trump, don't listen to the people rushing to reopen the government. I would use this opportunity to tell the American people in no uncertain terms what the Democrat Party is really all about. And I would use this opportunity to explain what chain migration is and is not. In a moment, we're going to play George Stephanopoulos with Luis Gutierrez. I tweeted about this yesterday. Luis Gutierrez goes on with Stephanopoulos. And, of course, he's retiring, right? He's getting out of town. And there has never been a piece of legislation that helps illegal immigrants that he hasn't been in favor of. Gutierrez, the most rabid, radical, open borders person you can imagine. So the conversation comes along to the deal. And Luis Gutierrez, does he think we're stupid? He's saying, well, George, we have given this president what he wants on the wall. You could have your stupid wall, okay? You could have your stupid wall. And then Stephanopoulos asks him about, they get into the chain migration thing. Let's listen to how this went down, and I will remind you of why we need more people watching Fox News every night.
When they say chain migration, which is something, just so that you know, offensive to me to use that word, right? Because it's really about family reunification. It's about a mom bringing their children, about children bringing their moms, about a husband and a wife. Those are the visas they're going after. Let's be absolutely clear. They want to end. What does my ability to bring my brother to the United States of America, what does the ability that I have to bring my children to this country, or my children to bring me, have to do with border security, have to do with keeping this country safe? They want to end legal immigration.
Why did you lie to me? Can't be trusted, good for nothing type of brother.
Setting aside the grammatical and usage errors, ability to bring my brother. Oh, okay, Luis. Chain migration applies to anyone except minor children. You heard him refer to children. Minor children aren't part of the chain migration problem. Adults who are legal immigrants, of course, they can apply to bring their spouse and minor children. What we are talking about are extended relatives, adults. Yeah, other adults. Just because you got a green card doesn't mean your half brother living in Pakistan should be able to come in as well. It's absurd. But Stephanopoulos does not know enough about the issue to say, whoa. What do you mean the Republicans are against legal immigration? When did they ever say that? We are against exploding the family migration of entire villages, extended relatives into the United States, which was never anticipated, and which the people of the United States, when properly informed as to what this is, do not support. They support merit-based immigration, the exception being minor children and spouses. Not parents, no, not your brothers or sisters who are 35 years old living in Salvador because they want to come in. That's accounted for 44% of all green cards in the United States every year, and it's gone up year after year. So that means 455,000 people came into the United States legally last year as extended relatives of people already here. So you see why one illegal immigrant, given amnesty, can give quote, birth to migration of 6 and 7 more. In Mexico, the average, for Mexican immigrants in the United States, they on average bring in 6 others. That's why we've had the explosion of these immigration numbers in the country. That's why you've had an entire demographic landscape change in critical states across this country. And Donald Trump should not listen to anything Lindsey Graham says on this. If I were Trump, I'd say, you're out of my negotiations. No interest in having Lindsey Graham and Jeff Flake be part of this. 855-40-LAURA. I want your reaction to this. Donald Trump tweeted out this morning, Democrats have shut down our government in the interest of the far left base. They don't want to do it, but they are powerless. Democrats are turning down services and security for citizens in favor of services and security for non-citizens. Not good. Well, that's what I was saying all week last week. And I say, do not be bum rushed into agreeing to some deal that undercuts you going forward and undercuts our country. How many of you think the president should compromise on his view on chain migration? Remember what Rand Paul said last week? Rand Paul said, well, maybe we could at least reduce the chain migration from 800,000. No. That's not enough. We have the presidency, the House, and the Senate. The president is going to compromise just by giving 800. A lot of my listeners don't want the 800,000 people to get amnesty. That's almost 1 million Americans. That'd flip an election real fast. But how many of you believe that the president should compromise on chain migration? My view is absolutely not. No compromise, no chain migration. 800,000 people on a path to legalization, that's the compromise. No parents. The idea that the parents can stay and re-up every 3 years, no way. That's another silent amnesty. Let's say it's one parent per 800,000. I mean, it's more than that. So that's another, at least, let's say it's 1,000 more. 1,000 more. Let's say it's 1 million more. So it's 800,000 plus 1 million. That's 1.8 million who would have de facto amnesty. Oh, no, none of them would vote. No. They're all going to turn around and vote. Yeah, vote for Republicans. Oh, by the way, we have another huge issue with these Peter Strzok text messages disappearing. For 5 months, suddenly they're gone. All the text messages are gone. I thought you could never delete stuff. I thought that was impossible to do. And it's during a 5-month period where really unimportant things happened, like when Michael Flynn was interviewed. Oh, yeah, and the whole dossier story came up in the first place. Oh, yeah, it's not an important time to see what Peter Strzok was saying to his girlfriend, Lisa Page. Or Lisa, what's her name? Is it Page? I always forget her name. Yeah. So, yeah, this is where we are. You can't trust the Justice Department. You can't trust the upper echelon of the FBI. They love the agents are great people. But you can't trust them. You can't trust the intel. The intel's turning on Trump. And now I think the White House actually has the upper hand on messaging because it's the military. That's good stuff. Very good stuff. I would not compromise on chain migration. 855-40-LAURA. We'll take a break. And James will bump out with something really cool. Oh, we'll take a break. Don't go away.
That ain't working. That's the way you do it. Money for nothing and your chicks for free.
In 2013, you said we could say we're shutting down the government. We're not going to raise the debt ceiling until you pass immigration reform. It would be governmental chaos. How do you reconcile that with your position today?
Big difference is that was Ted Cruz on his own. This is a bipartisan proposal that has the support of 90% of the American people. Huge difference.
Thank you very much, Chuck. Appreciate it very much.
Hey, it's Rob Riggle.
And Sarah Tiana.
And you are listening to Riggle's Pit.
Yeah, and a ham horn, and we have a new podcast. You can find our show exclusively on the Podcast One app, on podcastonesports.com, and don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts.
Every Thursday, we're going to sit around and we're going to talk about the things that really excite us, like life, comedy, sports, a lot of sports.
Ourselves.
A lot of Sarah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Kim Jong-un.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's going to be a lot of fun. I hope you join us.
What about us? What about all the times you said you had the answer?
The reason we yank these things back is because Mr. Miller, I've known him for a long time. I know he's passionate. I know he's an early supporter of the president. But I'll just tell you, his view of immigration has never been in the mainstream of the Senate. And I think we're never going to get there as long as we embrace concepts that cannot possibly get 60 votes.
This guy, Lindsey Graham, you have a guy, he's one of the dumbest human beings I've ever seen.
Oh, man, I love this Pink song. I know it's from last year, but I love this song. I work out to this song. It's such a great song. What about us, the people? What about the people? Now, what about the illegal immigrants? I'm telling you, Donald Trump's great value beyond the economic revival America has had is that we know where everybody stands now. I love that. Put your cards on the table. Let's see what you got. Oh, you're bluffing. You got a 3 of clubs, a 2 of spades. You got a 5 of diamonds. You got 1 jack. And you had the face on that you had 4 aces. You got nothing. You got a lousy hand. Yeah. So now Trump sees where everybody's at. And Lindsey Graham has not learned a thing since 2006, when his last Grahamnesty went down in flames. Yeah, we called it Grahamnesty back then, and now 11, 12 years later, still doing the radio show, and now we're back at the same thing. He is Michael Myers from Halloween. It's the only thing you don't have like a mask, you don't have a weird hat like Freddy Krueger does. You just have Lindsey Graham, and he keeps coming and coming and coming for your independence, your rule of law, your sovereignty, and any type of law enforcement against illegal immigrants. He keeps coming for it. And every time we have to beat him. We have to beat him every single time this happens. So I was thinking about this. So Lindsey Graham, who couldn't make it past December 2015 running for president, he's now going to pick the president's staff. I love that. Now he wants to pick, oh no, you can't have Miller. Stephen Miller knows more about how to keep America America than you'll ever know, Lindsey. And I know you were in the JAG Corps, and that's great, and that's fantastic. But Stephen Miller has been holding the strong enforcement line on immigration and exposing what's been happening on immigration as long as I've been doing. And he's doing that back when he was in college. So don't tell me that the president shouldn't have certain people on his team. You shouldn't be on the team. You've been undercutting this president with the guise of being his friend for long enough. And I'm not going to stand for it. I can tell you that right now. I'm just not going to stand for it. Let's go to line 1. Scott in Kansas. I'm going to tell you what Chuck Schumer said about yours truly. Scott.
Laura, first of all, God bless you on this National Day of Prayer for the Unborn in our church.
Oh, thank you,
I want to really thank you. Sure, I want to thank you for what you're doing. You know, I heard that comment as I was walking out the door by Lindsey Graham, and I'm as fired up as you are right now about it, because I'm thinking to myself, you moron, you got bounced out of the election because you're on the wrong side of this. You're completely out of the mainstream. And I'm telling you what, I'm calling out here. I'm a financial advisor out here in the Midwest. And the business owners in this part of the country that I work with are so happy that the boots of government are finally off of their necks and they can do something for their employees. They want something done about this illegal immigration.
It's ridiculous.
And Lindsey Graham needs to shut up and just go home.
Shut up, the loud people. I'm tired of listening to the loud people. That's all he ever says. We don't have time to play Schumer, do we? We're going to have to play it when we come back. I started getting texts on Saturday as I was flying back to L.A. I had the internet on the plane. So I was flying back to L.A. and like, Schumer just give you a shout out and he mispronounced your name. I said, that's very misogynist. What a misogynist. He's taking my power away. I can't find a safe space. It's a trigger warning. Chuck Schumer. Oh my God. He's so mad that I gave him the nickname Upchuck. He never got over that. Got a lot to get to. Hogan Gidley from the White House up next.
Sesli, görüntülü buluşmalar yetmez hasret gidermeye. Gönül sarılmak, koklamak ister. Sun Express'te sevdiklerinize kavuşmak 49.99'dan başlıyor. Sevdiklerinize giden en hızlı yol. Sun Express.
Last year, when President Trump ended the DACA program, we immediately began working on a solution that both sides could agree to. Leader Pelosi and I went to dinner with the president. We came away with an agreement to pursue a deal pursuing the DACA Act with border security. The president agreed. But that night and the next morning, The hard right came after him. Breitbart called him Amnesty Trump. Laura Ingraham even insisted he be impeached. By the weekend, he had backed off.
I don't even know what he is talking about. Wait a second. James and I have been racking our brains. Taylor, when have I asked for Donald Trump to be impeached? They think Donald Trump is disconnected from reality? Chuck Schumer's just making up his own bedtime stories here. And no, just because he mispronounced my last name. He sounds like Sean Hannity teasing me. Laura Ingraham. I don't care. I actually don't even care about that. But I do care about being told that I asked for the president to be impeached. What a liar!
I like to think that being that I sit here for the entire show and listen, that I would remember if you would call for Trump's impeachment.
You know what I bet he's referring to is I said something like, there'll be such a demographic change in the country, you'll demoralize your base, you'll lose the House of Representatives, and then they'll impeach you. Maybe I said something like that, but I don't even remember that. But that's a far cry from saying, and Laura Ingraham insisted that you would be impeached. What? So I'm getting these text messages. A couple of friends at the White House texted me, and they were screaming because they knew it wasn't true. They're like, now he's just making stuff up. And that's the first time I've heard it. James just played that for me. I had not heard that all weekend. Joining us now is Hogan Gidley, Deputy White House Press Secretary. No rest for the weary, and he's with us now. Hogan, how are you, my friend? Good to talk to you.
Well, I love the mispronunciation of your name, Ingraham. I laughed and laughed when I heard that. Not to mention the fact he's just completely
lied,
not telling the truth. I just, gosh.
Well, if he lies about
Incredible.
something small, Hogan, what does that mean about the big stuff in Chuck Schumer? Let's get right to it. The push now, it's like a bum's rush going on right now. We have a bipartisan group of senators, and we insist that we force a deal on this DACA thing. And what they're obviously doing is they're trying to cut the chain migration out of the deal and force the president's hand with Jeff Flake and Lindsey Graham. What is the White House's reaction to all of this as we broadcast today?
Well, I mean, obviously there's been so much misreporting because there's been so much, there've been so many untruths coming from the left on this. I mean, that they own this. I mean, this is the Schumer shutdown. I think that the country understands that Democrats are playing politics with people's lives. And what's so shocking here, and I think this is what you've touched on this on your show, the radio show and the show on Fox, and that is for Democrats to hang their hat on this and decide to choose the side of people who are here unlawfully over, hundreds of thousands of people here unlawfully versus hundreds of millions of American citizens. I think that's a huge mistake politically and quite frankly from a policy standpoint.
But one of the many great values of having President Trump in office is that we do begin to see what cards everybody has. So people are forced to put their cards down on the table. And now we know where everybody stands. Okay, Lindsey Graham, who continues to say he's with the military. I want more for the military. The military's great. When push comes to shove, Lindsey Graham, as of now, is out there trashing White House staffers like Stephen Miller and continuing this madness of having the government shut down to protect illegal immigrants. And Hogan, I can tell you, my board is full. It's been full now for the week on this topic. Most Trump supporters don't even want the amnesty. They don't want any amnesty. So for the White House to compromise on that alone is going to be a tough pill to swallow. But for that, they absolutely demand an end to chain migration, visa lottery, funding, not just an authorization for the wall.
Absolutely. And look, let's give you a quick history lesson about Lindsey Graham. I mean, I'm from South Carolina. I was the executive director of the South Carolina Republican Party. I remember at the state convention, a room full of 2,000 Republicans who booed Senator Graham because he was for amnesty and open borders then. So this isn't a new position for Lindsey Graham. I mean, he has the right to take that position. That's fine. But to mischaracterize where the president stands on this, and they come to the president and say, we have a deal. We're going to fund your wall. And then you show up, and it's $1.6 billion when DHS says,
by our studies, we need not one.
Hogan, you
we
sound like you're
need
talking through a
18 billion.
toilet paper holder. You got to stay right on the headset or the handset because we got to hear
I'm
you really
sorry.
clearly.
Is that better?
Yeah, you're better, but you sounded
that
far
better?
away there. So on the wall, just explain this because this is what Tom Cotton and others, I believe, were saying. Or no, excuse me, it was Mulvaney who is fantastic, by the way. I love Mick Mulvaney.
Yep.
It's so valuable to have him up there because he understands when they start pulling the jargon, he throws it right back in their faces. I love it. And he said, you wait a second, Chuck Schumer offered authorization for the wall. He said, we need appropriation for the wall, correct?
Absolutely, which is that's such DC speak to try and run roughshod over everybody and the American people. But look, let's just say for a second, if we were going to negotiate on DACA at all, and Schumer comes to the table about a wall and says, hey, here's less than 1/10 of what you want for the wall, and it's not even an appropriation, it's an authorization. What if we said, okay, well, we'll address 1/10 of the dreamers? How do you think that would go over?
Oh, no.
I mean, it's completely insulting to try and pretend as though you're funding something that was had to be in there. The wall is essential to the president. The 55-minute meeting that everyone got to see, bicameral, bipartisan, in the cabinet room, he made it very clear we have to have a wall, and it has to be funded. DHS says we need that money. Not that we want it. We need $18 billion, and they come with less than 1/10 of what we need at 1.6, and it wasn't even an appropriation.
Hogan, what are the chances that this shutdown ends today? And will it be something that involves immigration, or will you say all immigration matters will be resolved, in the next 3 weeks?
Well, I mean, look, the president's been very clear about what he wants in the CR. I mean, Democrats are
yeah, we're gonna Hogan. Hold on 1 second. We're gonna try to reconnect with you because the sound is just atrocious. So we're gonna reconnect with you. So just be patient. We'll get you back on the line. Before we do, let's go to Jerry in Indiana, line 1. Jerry, Jerry, go ahead.
Hey, Laura. Yes, my wife is a federal employee and she was furloughed, and we've both been talking about it. We do not want the president to buckle. We want this figured out. We want it done. We want there to be changes to change migration. We want the wall, and we need the government to get back to what it promised us, or at least Donald Trump promised us. The other thing I would say is it reminds me a lot of the Reagan administration. How many times was the government shut down in the Reagan administration? Because the president would not cave in.
Right.
So,
Don't cave in. There's no reason to cave in. You are on the right side of this. And I think, Jerry, you're absolutely right. If it requires a few days of national tutorials to explain to people what has exactly happened to their country and how the working poor have been hurt, how the middle class have been hurt, and how the Democrats always side with open borders. They always side with the illegal immigrants over the American people, whether it's in-state tuition support, whether it's driver's licenses for illegals, whether it's being able to keep their parents here, whether it's being able to sponsor their brothers, sisters, and second cousin twice removed. They always will side with the new immigrants who they think are better than the American people. And that's just a fact. And I think the more people understand that, the more leverage Donald Trump has. We're back with Hogan Gidley. Hogan, sorry about that, but we needed to hear everything you were saying, my friend. So let's.
No, sorry about that.
No, that's okay. You sound perfect now. So let's go back to where we stand now. And I want to play something for you. This is MSNBC this morning going after the president's ability to negotiate. Let's listen.
What's striking is Republican operatives said to me, they think this president is erratic, he's undisciplined, he's inconsistent, which makes it tough for him when he tries to get himself engaged in a deal like this.
The fact that he is so confused on issues that he will continually agree and constantly say, we're in business. I mean, he is Chauncey Gardner. He doesn't know the issues well enough. He'll agree on issues, and then he will bumble back into the White House, and his staff members will go, no, Mr. President, you can't agree on this.
This is a consistent drumbeat that you hear from the lamestream media, that President Trump is not with it. He apparently isn't mentally engaged, intellectually engaged enough to know what he's agreeing to. And then he goes back to the advisors and they say, no, you can't agree to that. Respond to that, if you will.
The second question when the president's doctor was giving the press briefing was about the president's mental health. The doctor addressed it. The cognitive skills was a 30 out of 30. The president made 100%. You could have heard a pin drop in that briefing room, because everybody's narrative coming out of that briefing was going to be, they didn't do a mental test. He's mentally unstable. They were so upset that he got a clean bill of health. Now you're seeing that morph into he's erratic. That's the real problem. He's erratic. He doesn't know the issues. This president has negotiated record-setting accomplishments in record-setting time in the first year. A 40-year drought on changing tax reform, he did it in the first year. For them to pretend as though he doesn't get this issue is insane. He was talking about this on the campaign trail. Now they're trying to say, he didn't even know that the border wall wouldn't be 2,000 miles. Not true. On MSNBC's own air, in an interview a couple of years ago, he made the point, we don't need 2,000 miles. We need 1,000 miles at least because of the barriers and borders. They're trying to make him out to be an incompetent negotiator when the man is a billionaire. He won the White House, and now he's running all over them, and they don't know what to do.
Well, Hogan, I love someone who drops out in December 2015 out of the GOP primary, i.e. Lindsey Graham, and another guy who has to retire because he's at 18% in the polls in his home state, Flake, trying to dictate the terms of an agreement regarding the shutdown. I just love that. Like they're more in tune with the people of the country than he is? I don't think so.
Absolutely. And look, Lindsey Graham, again, he got 2% in his own home state in that election. So, the president has been running this show from the get-go. He understands the issues. He's just running all over Democrats. They're embarrassed by it. They don't know what to do. They're still confused as to how he won the election, and that's part of what this is about. But look, if you're choosing people who are here unlawfully over American citizens, I don't know how that's a winning message for Democrats in any election, much less during the shutdown. It's inconceivable. And quite frankly, it's grotesque to put politics ahead of people's lives, and that's exactly what they're doing here. You have to fund the military. You have to make sure those folks out there laying down their lives every day for us receive payment. And for whatever reason, the Democrats have absolutely exposed what they are, what they believe in, and who they support. And quite frankly, it's not American citizens.
No, and anyway, we are completely with you on that. Excellent points. Hogan Gidley, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be following this. Yep. What'd you say?
Can I make one more point?
Sure, go ahead.
I will say, it's so funny that this is something that they would do to us, but it's so funny, Senator Feinstein said shutting down the government is a very serious thing because people die. Then she voted against it. So explain to me what that says about her to admit people are going to die if the government shut down, and then she says, I'm going to vote against keeping people alive, basically.
All I'll say to the Feinstein Brigade is check out what's happened to California, the highest poverty rate in the United States right now because of a supermajority Democrat rule. Hogan Gidley from the White House here on the Laura Ingraham Show. Stay with us.
Singing, follow me, everything is all right. I'll be the one.
All right, back on the Laura Ingraham Show. Big Ingraham angle tonight. You want to make sure you tune in. We killed it on the road in the ratings, by the way. Blew Lawrence O'Donnell off the map. It was awesome. Great team. We have a great team for radio and TV. Can't do it without them. So it's not my show. It's everybody's. It's your show, too. I mean, I really do it for you guys. Hope you watch. Please tune in, 10 p.m. Eastern. Let's go to Phil in Pennsylvania, line 4. Phil.
Well, I just want to make the point that I'm tired of upchucks saying that these proposals from the Democrats are bipartisan when what they really mean is all the Democrats plus Lindsey Graham and Jeff Flake. And they're nothing but Democrats, okay?
Yeah, it's not bipartisan. It's not bipartisan when it's Graham. There's no bipartisanship. It's bipartisan if Senators Perdue and Cotton are involved. Then it's bipartisan because they actually represent the president's views on immigration. All right, let's go to Maria on line 6 very quickly. Miss Maria.
Hey, Laura. I have a couple things to say.
Real quick.
First of all, okay, I'm 100% for President Trump. No compromise, no amnesty, no chain migration. Lindsey Graham, he's a rhino, and Trump should not deal with him. And I am a former retired government employee, and I think this shutdown is ridiculous.
Well, I think it's all in the Democrats' hands. Stay with us.
Your healthy radio addiction starts now.
Power to the people!
The Laura Ingraham Show.
Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks now. Let me kick it like it's 1986 now. I'll be over now, but I feel it still.
The American people are not going to accept the premise that immigrants are criminals and that we ought to deport the dreamers. We need a reasonable approach that is mindful of our national security, number one, but embraces a basic value in America. We are a diverse nation, a nation of immigrants, and we're proud of it.
Cliche alert. Cliche alert.
Aren't you sick of hearing the phrase, we're a nation of immigrants? Well, we're a nation of the Constitution, the Declaration, the rule of law. I mean, laws are passed by Congress, but yet they're not supposed to be enforced. And I routinely will say this. What other laws can we just ignore completely? And where do we get our amnesty when we want it? You don't pay your taxes? Oh, I want amnesty. You decide that, you're going to shoplift? Oh, can I have amnesty, please? I did it when I was 17. I didn't know what I was doing. No, nobody gets amnesty. You don't get amnesty unless you're an illegal immigrant. Then you get amnesty. Then politicians are falling all over themselves to give you amnesty. And we're now shutting down the government. It's mind-boggling. When you really stop to think about it, shutting down the U.S. government to cater to illegal immigrants. That's what the Democrats are doing. Mitch McConnell is now speaking ahead of vote on reopening government. Let's listen in.
To the major issue before the Senate, all of these issues. Each of us brings our own views and personal perspectives to discussions of immigration policy or health care reform or details of government spending. But we should not let the political feuds or policy disagreements obscure the simple fact that every member of this body cares deeply about the challenges facing our country. All of us want to make life better for the American people. Bearing this in mind, I hope and intend that we can reach bipartisan solutions on issues such as military spending, immigration, and border security, and disaster relief before the February 8th deadline. But yesterday evening, I restated my position that these negotiations can't last forever. Should these issues not be resolved by the time the funding bill before us expires on February 8th, so long as the government remains open, it would be my intention to take up legislation here in the Senate that would address DACA, border security, and related issues, as well as disaster relief, defense funding, health care, and other important matters. Let me be clear. This immigration debate will have a level playing field at the outset and an amendment process that is fair to all sides.
Oh, just like the Democrats were fair to us.
This immigration debate will have a level playing field at the outset.
What does that mean?
And an amendment process that's fair to all sides.
Does he know he just repeated himself?
And it would be my strong preference for the Senate to consider a proposal that can actually be signed into law.
He's terrible on immigration. But he said he was for the RAISE Act when I interviewed him, and he was good.
So negotiating, and I look forward to completion.
Will the real Mitch McConnell please step forward?
But it's abundantly clear that the Senate cannot make progress on any of these crucial matters until the government is reopened.
Okay, I'm going to jump in here. Here's what I'll say. Mitch McConnell is like the master of the Senate rules. You know what he's not a master of? Rhetoric. He is the most, God bless him. I mean, he's so boring. We need a Republican who can get up there and say, all right, American people, here's where we are right now. Our government is in its non-essential services shut down, meaning there are people furloughed, military not getting their pay, they're working but no pay. And we could reopen it right now, except the guy over there, Chuck Schumer, and over in this House, Nancy Pelosi, are holding us hostage to help 800,000 people who are here against the laws of the United States of America. We cannot have a gun to our head here. We will not be in this position, and you, American people, need to use your own voices, your own megaphones if you have them, and spread the word about what's happening here. We can reopen the government right now. They have chosen not to do that. See, when you have a Senate Majority Leader who's speaking on the Senate floor during a shutdown, cable news should not leave that shot, but all of the cable news has now left the coverage of Mitch McConnell because it's so boring. I guess he stopped talking, but it's just, I'm sorry, but give us something. Give us something. Don't you agree? See, the Democrats have only emotion. They have no substance. We need a little emotion. We need some emotion. I'm here 3 blocks from the Capitol are men and women sleeping in the street at a homeless shelter on, what is it, E Street, D Street, homeless shelter, and they're rolled up in old dirty sleeping bags, living outside. And I bet if you go in that crowd of the homeless people, there are some veterans in there. Until every veteran is off the streets and is able to be dealt with their mental health, addiction problems, every U.S. veteran is off the streets. This is ridiculous that we're doing this. Instead of, well, we're gonna work on the immigration issue on a level playing field. What does that mean? The level playing field. That Republicans. Telling you, if it weren't for Fox News and talk radio, we already would have had another mass amnesty. We would have had one in 2007, and we would have had one in 2013. And right now we have thousands and thousands of people crossing the border illegally. We've had 62,000 family units cross the border in the year 2017. And in the end of the year, the rush really was on. Look at that, Jeff Flake on MSNBC. Oh, no. Make sure Mike, 3 people together, Jeff Flake, Susan Collins, and Lindsey Graham. The 3 of them, if they have one brain cell combined, I'd be shocked. Let's listen in on MSNBC if we could. They're all standing there, and Susan Collins, let's listen.
Proposals to end the impasse on the DACA population. So, we're making progress by inches, but I thought it was a good meeting that came up with some good ideas. In the end, it's going to be up to the 2 leaders, and I hope that they can come together.
Senator McConnell just went to the floor and just said that I hope and intend to bring immigration bill.
They're all 3 of these senators are all for the illegal immigrants over the American people. Every single one of them.
After that,
look at that
if the government
flake.
remains open,
Snowflake, melt the snowflake.
Firm in his commitment here in order to win over Democrats, say tied to it, assuring them that it would go to the next CR. Should he be more firm in his language to get this?
Look at the media fawning over Susan Collins, Jeff Flake, and Lindsey Graham. Fawning over them. Where's Tom Cotton? Why isn't he not at the cameras?
I think he's right to say this is not a good way to get a result on any policy. Have the government shut
Lindsey.
down.
2%.
I don't think this is the right way to get policy
2%.
outcomes is to shut the government down. 2%. When we tried it, it didn't work well for us. So I think what you will hear from the majority leader is a firmer commitment when it seems like it will matter. Right now, Jeff Flake and Lindsey Graham are with the majority leader. We got 52 votes. There's some other Democrats I think would like to get to yes. I think if Mitch were a little firmer as to, we are going to move to immigration on February the 8th if we don't get a
he's
solution.
He's obsessed with amnesty.
It will be a
That's
process
all he's obsessed with, that and starting more wars.
Will make a big difference, but he's got to be convinced it will matter to make that commitment. So if I were a Democrat, I would go talk to my leader, Schumer, and say, if you can get the majority leader to be a little more specific,
we have to get that and play that.
I am ready to open up the government. And here's the question for all of us. What good does it do to open up the government? A lot, but does it lead us to a solution? My goal is to create a process that gets us to yes on a bunch of issues.
I can't listen to this. I can't. It's putting me in a bad mood. I was in a really good mood when I came in. I'm in a bad mood. All right, 855-40-LAURA. We got Gingrich coming up. I can't wait. Oh, this is so good. We have such a great show. We have a fantastic show tonight. The Grahamnesty trio speaking now. Snowflake, the Maniac Collins, and Grahamnesty are all the 3 amigos up there. We'll take a break. Don't go away.
There's a hope that's waiting for you in the dark. You
There's a history around here of people screwing up immigration on both sides. I'd like to bring that history to a conclusion. So here's what I think. I think if the majority leader says stronger words about we will go to immigration, he will say that if it matters. So some Democrats have to convince Mitch McConnell stronger language results in an outcome.
You are listening to the Laura Ingraham Show. Okay, he started off yesterday by dictating to the president which staff should be involved in immigration, namely Stephen Miller, who has all of our backs, thank you, in the White House. He shouldn't be part of it. And he repeated that just now. Now he's dictating how Mitch McConnell should speak about the illegal immigrants, because Lindsey Graham is a fanatic. He is a rabid fanatic when it comes to illegal immigrants. He wants to do anything possible to make their lives easier for them. And then for the rest of you, well, you just have to go along for his ride. The man agrees with the Democrats 99% of the time on illegal immigration. He is not for ending chain migration. He's not for ending visa lottery. In fact, over the weekend, he said, well, he didn't say how we're going to replace how are we going to replace these programs. He wants other types of immigration. By the way, I'm going to bring you an incredible new report that just came out today about the real public view on immigration. Now, this is stunning stuff. Now, this was done, believe it or not, by, I think, Harvard University. And contrary to what a lot of people believe here, the American people are not so wild about, the illegal immigration in the United States, and they're not falling all over themselves to help the illegal immigrants. Here are a couple of the metrics here. 65 to 35% support a deal for DACA that ends chain migration, eliminates the visa lottery, and secures border with a wall. That's Trump's plan. So 65% of Americans want Trump's plan that Chuck Schumer said no to. Number two, 58% of Americans, as compared to 42% of Americans, oppose shutting down over DACA. Okay, I can't believe it's that small of a margin, but nevertheless, it's 4% more Americans support not shutting down the government for DACA. Okay, 68% to 32% oppose the visa lottery. Fewer than 10% of Americans support the current levels of immigration versus 81% who want to see legal immigration levels slashed dramatically. 81% want legal immigration to be slashed dramatically. This is a new Harvard-Harris poll that just came out. Joining us now, Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House on the Laura Ingraham Show. Newt, it's great to talk to you, my friend. Your views so far on the shutdown blame game. We have Lindsey Graham, Jeff Flake, and Susan Collins just dictating the terms of any language that Mitch McConnell should be using. They're all dictating who Donald Trump should hire in the White House or listen to on immigration. But as far as I can tell, the three of them don't represent the president's views on immigration at all. Newt.
Well, they don't represent the president. They don't represent the American people. The point you just made is really powerful. No one has taken into account yet this conversation about immigration has led to some very fundamental changes in attitude as people learn more and more facts. When you learn the other day, for example, that the guy who cut somebody with a knife in a restaurant had been deported 7 times and come back illegally 7 times. The average American, when they're told that, just thinks it's all crazy. And, of course, California, the state where he attacked that person, happens to be a sanctuary state. So they've taken the position that they'd rather risk the lives of their citizens than in any way be tough on illegal immigration. I think that people really, and the elites really underestimate how much the national conversation, and by the way, this is not pro or anti any ethnic group. Most Americans of every background would like to live in a safe country. And if you go into, for example, Latino communities and you talk about MS-13, there is no sympathy for those kind of criminals being allowed into the United States. And yet people like Chuck Schumer, I think the term Schumer shutdown is a very nice capture of where we are. He went out of his way, in effect, to put at risk American soldiers and sailors and their families on behalf of people who came here illegally. And I think that on the end, in the long run, is a really badly losing position for the Democrats.
Well, I think it's quite stunning to me when we have Republicans working with Democrats, and it's called bipartisan, when in fact the individuals from Lamar Alexander to Lindsey Graham to Jeff Flake to Susan Collins are total outliers on this issue. It is not bipartisan when people like Tom Cotton and Senator Perdue, David Perdue, are not involved, because they actually do represent the president's view. And so right now it's just a bunch of Democrats saying, gimme, 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 we want this, and trying to blame the president for this. It's crazy.
Well, and I don't fully understand what Lindsey Graham thinks he gets out of all this. And I understand that where Senator Flake's coming from. He's been bitterly anti-Trump. He's written a book attacking Trump, given speeches attacking Trump. And I sort of understand Susan Collins is a moderate from Maine. But if you look at Lindsey Graham representing South Carolina, this issue makes no sense. It can't possibly be representative of his home state. And I don't know whether they got to Washington and drank the Kool-Aid or what the deal is, but I think that his position on this is about as much of an outlier as you can be, given the state that he represents.
New story over the weekend that the FBI failed to preserve 5 months of text messages between these anti-Trump FBI agents. Came at a critical time, of course, when, for instance, Mike Flynn was interviewed at the White House, and suddenly no can find. What does that tell you?
Look, I have said over and over again that while 98% of the FBI agents are honorable, decent people, it's hard to overstate the level of corruption that has filled in at the very top. And it's hard to realize how close we came to losing the rule of law in America. If Hillary Clinton had been elected, we would learn none of this. These people were actively corrupt. And what they were doing was actively outside the law. And clearly, they're in serious risk, I think, of being convicted of felonies and doing jail time. And I just think people do not realize how really bad the system has gotten at the very top. And Comey was a part of it, but Comey was not all of it.
Well, Newt Gingrich, always great to have your perspective. Former Speaker of the House here on the Laura Ingraham Show. Newt, we'll check back with you. Thanks so much. We have a full-up show today. We're going to get to all aspects, including this new Harvard-Harris poll, which tells more truth about the real view of the American public on immigration than anything I've seen lately. Don't go away.
Hi, this is Ben Domenech, the host of the Federalist Radio Hour. We're a daily show coming to you 5 days a week from Washington, D.C., where we interview our nation's top journalists, politicians, authors, chefs, economists, entertainers, and more. If you're looking for a contrarian discussion on news, politics, or culture, give us a listen and subscribe at podcastone.com, the new Podcast One app, or at Apple Podcasts.
Build it up, we tear it down, we leave our pieces on the ground.
I'm embarrassed for my country. You know, we got used to these shutdowns, but we really shouldn't ever. It's all so stupid. We used to have debates about the size of government or debates about war and peace, but immigration is now one of the central issues in American life, and it's really at the core of this thing. And the Republicans clearly feel, especially in red states, they can go to red states and say, you know, we want to keep government open for Americans, we want to keep health care for Americans, we want to keep the Army for Americans, and they want to hold it up for a bunch of illegal Americans. So which party do you support?
David Brooks, a New York Times Republican, meaning a liberal. He's embarrassed. Oh, I'm sorry we embarrass you, David. I'm so sorry. It's embarrassing. Oh, when he goes over to Paris, because it's so lovely over there now with the mass Muslim migration. When he goes to when he goes to L.A. and goes to soirees there, he's embarrassed. Oh, poor baby. You're listening to your healthy radio addiction, 855-40-LAURA. I was thinking about it this way, guys. The GOP could not pass Obamacare repeal and replace. But they're hell-bent on doing something for the DACA kids average age, 26, 27? Again, repeat, the GOP in a year could not pass Obamacare repeal and replace, but they're hell-bent on doing something. We've got to do something for the DACA kids. What about for the American people? If it weren't for Donald Trump, I don't know what would have happened to this country, but it wouldn't have been good. And you see the three amigos up there, Susan Collins, Jeff Flake, and Lindsey Graham, with zero connection to where the Republican voters are on immigration. Zero. They have zero connection to the Republican voters. And I'll tell you, this new poll that came out, this Harvard-Harris poll, it's pretty good. I mean, it reminds me of the Gallup poll that came out some years ago on immigration, the last time they tried to pull this nonsense. Set by a percentage in 79 to 21, more people want secure borders rather than open borders. Well, I should hope so. 60 to 40, 60% to 40%, dreamers should not be given preference to bring their relatives to the United States. 60 to 40%. That's chain migration. 79% to 21% think immigration should be based on skills rather than family ties. Again, chain migration. Fewer than 10% polled support current levels of immigration versus 81% who want to see legal immigration levels slashed dramatically. So when Stephen Miller and the president and Tom Cotton and David Perdue talk about reducing the levels of legal immigration, they are right in the mainstream of public thought. The outliers, as Lindsey Graham said, oh, Stephen Miller, and that's an outlier on then he's calling the president an outlier on immigration. The outlier is Lindsey Graham, there's a reason they gave him the nickname Grahamnesty, because for at least 12, 13 years, the man has been obsessed with more amnesties. Obsessed. And if you really gave him some sodium pentothal, he would say that not only should the 800,000 DACA get amnesty, but the 3.6 million dreamers and their parents and any relatives that they want to come in should all get amnesty as well. They should all be able to come in. If you gave him sodium pentothal, I have no doubt in my mind that he would say that.
Been talking to a bunch of Democrats. There are plenty of them that thinks that this is not a good idea. They just need a little more. I may be wrong. If that's the case, I think Mitch would give a little more. It really would be a tragedy to continue this mess when there are answers to the nation's problems at hand. Opening the government up is not winning. It's stopping losing. Winning is finding solutions.
No, winning is what Donald Trump did in 2016 on the issue of immigration. Donald Trump won on the issue of immigration, I think, more than anything else. This referendum was already done, okay? It's called the result of the 2016 election cycle. We already had a referendum on immigration. People don't want as much legal immigration. Thank you very much. We don't need a lot of new immigration. Very small subset, maybe, of certain skilled workers, okay? It's a very small number that we really need as far as legal immigration. It's not 1 million green cards a year. We don't need 1 million green cards a year. It's absurd. And we certainly don't need to bring everybody's extended family in. And just, okay, let's do it like New Zealand does it. Let's do it like, how does France do its immigration today? Let's talk about the way other countries do their immigration. Even Canada, which is you think more liberal than the United States. Look at the way the Canadians handle illegal immigration. I'm going to get into that. NPR did a report on this back in December. It was pretty interesting, actually. I'll get into that as well. And also these missing text messages from Peter Strzok between Peter Strzok, the disgraced FBI agent who should be fired, he and his gal pal, Lisa Page. Suddenly, 5 months of text messages. Oh, we're supposed to believe those are only sweet nothings. They were texting each other. Okay. Let's go to Greg in Alabama on line 2. Greg.
Hey, Lauren, thanks. One of the things that bothers me about the government shutdown is, I'm an Army veteran that served in Desert Shield, Desert Storm, was awarded a Bronze Star for being frontline combat medic, and I fought for this country, but I think it's unfair that Schumer and Pelosi and these guys can hold us hostage, they still get paid. Us veterans, waiting on our paycheck at the end of the month, we're not getting paid. As far as, and the active military is not getting paid. I just don't see how any American can support those guys getting their paychecks.
That's a great point. Greg, first of all, thank you so much for your service to this country. You're an American hero, Bronze Star, amazing. Thank you so much. And you are absolutely right. Congress should live by the rules that are, are imposed on the American people. That's why they shouldn't have been allowed to get that gold-plated health care plan when everyone else is stuck with the Obamacare nightmare. They should have to live under the same. They should be in the exchanges. They shouldn't get any platinum level health care. No way. It's ridiculous. Great call. Let's go to Susan in Illinois, line 4. Susan, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
What is going to happen to medical research? I was speaking to a relative in Boston who's involved in cancer research. She was very concerned about the government shutdown this morning. They depend on funding from the National Institute of Health, federal funding for ongoing research, in the latest trials, human trials, cancer research, heart disease. Will this be interrupted? Will this be shut down? What are these politicians thinking? And this is not just Boston. This is research hospitals, universities all over the country that depend on the National Institute of Health and federal funding.
Yeah. Well, what it would mean for the NIH is they would stop processing grants, new grants. But the space station continues. The work in space continues. But because Congress failed to negotiate a spending plan for the full 2018 year budget, the U.S. government is operating under these temporary funding measures, which is absurd. And we've already talked about how the Democrats are obsessed with giving amnesty to illegals, and they're trying to hold the government up to force that. And on the issue of science and what it would do, government employees would be barred from attending scientific conferences. 80% of the biomedical research of the 19,740 employees of NIH were placed on enforced leave. So that was back in the 2013 shutdown. The NIH rescheduled the review of more than 13,700 grant applications. That was, again, during the 2013 shutdown. Clinical studies at the NIH campus in Bethesda, Maryland continued, but new patients were initially turned away from enrolling in trials. Some technicians remained to care for roughly 1.4 million rodents and 3,900 non-human primates. Wow, they have 3,900 non-human primates. Why don't they just say primates? I think we get it. Non-human primates. The agency's current shutdown plan, dated October 2016, calls for 602 employees to remain on duty to care for animals and other property. 586 to protect ongoing medical experiments, and 2,223 to provide medical service to patients at the NIH Clinical Center. But the agency would not admit new patients unless the NIH director, Francis Collins, deems that medically necessary. So that's an answer for you. I appreciate it. Let's go to David in New Jersey on line 6. David.
Hi, why don't we have a compromise and make DACA an 8th category in the RAISE Act, where it's a merit point system, so everybody comes in the same way, those seeking legal status, and they have to come in just like everybody else from other countries. That way we do away with chain migration and the visa lottery, and we have the RAISE Act. But then DACA has maybe, say, a 25-point head start out of a 100-point system. So not all of them will get in because they don't have enough points, but they'll come in the same way as everybody else, but make it part of the RAISE Act.
Well, that sounds great to me. There's not a Republican that I could think of who would be in favor of that, though. Maybe Tom Cotton, but I'm not even sure he would be in favor of that. Let me just, were it not for President Trump, if Hillary Clinton were president, let me just tell you this, and David, again, you make a great point. If Hillary Clinton were president, Republicans would have rolled over and they would have done DACA amnesty in February of last year.
If I were a Democrat.
You are, Lindsay. You are. But David, think about that. The only thing stopping an amnesty with nothing for border security is Donald Trump. If it were not for Donald Trump, we would already have given amnesty to the DACA and probably to a lot of those 3.6 million dreamers and to their parents. And chain migration would continue and the visa lottery. I mean, none of this would have been changed. So I don't think that there's, Mitch McConnell is not going to say 200,000 of the 800,000 have to be sent back to their home countries. There's no Republican that's going to deport the DACA people. No Republican. You know what I was thinking about when I was flying back from California on Saturday? I was thinking about these individuals who've been arrested and are in federal prison or state prison who are undocumented immigrants. And if they hadn't been caught, they would be dreamers. They're all under the age of 35 for the most part. That 32-year-old Salvadoran who raped that 6-year-old girl in October in New Jersey. Cory Booker, by the way, never spoke about that little girl. Senator from New Jersey. Cory Booker's just obsessed with browbeating the DHS secretary. But Cory Booker never even addressed that rape by an illegal immigrant. Well, he's 32 years old. What if he hadn't been caught? He could apply and could have been either DACA or just be a dreamer and beg for amnesty. So the only reason that the other reason is that they're not DACAs because they were caught and in prison, and then if you're in California, you're just released after you do your sentence, and you're released to maim, kill, rape, abuse again. So let the sunshine in. Let's see where everybody's stance is on this issue, and then the voters can just decide for themselves: is this senator or congressman representing me, or are they representing the open borders lobby of the Chamber of Commerce or La Raza or Mexico? Are they closer to representing Mexico than they are closer to representing us? And I say a lot of these people are closer to representing another country's interest. I mean, I don't blame Mexico. They want to get rid of as many people as possible. These people are just drains on the system for Mexico, so they're happy to have all these people flow out. We'll take a break. 855-40-LAURA. Phenomenal Ingraham angle on tap tonight. We're going to have a representative of the White House on and a lot more. I've been trying to get Jeff Flake and Lindsey Graham and Susan Collins on the show, and by golly, they're more comfortable going on MSNBC than they're coming on the Ingraham angle. I wonder why.
Come with me, my love.
Let's go to Ray in Arizona. Ray is a Republican and an immigrant living in Arizona. Ray, go ahead.
Yes, how are you doing, Laura?
Great.
Laura, I come from Cuba, and my wife comes from Juarez, and I believe that Americans have a really great heart, and we should try to figure a way to do the DACA kids. Okay, and I think the only solution for everybody would be to legalize the DACA kids, no chain migration, but do not let them vote for 20 years.
Well, we're out of time, but that's a very interesting proposal. You know what the Democrats would say. You just want a permanent class of third-class citizens in the United States. How dare you not allow them to vote Democrat immediately? Ray, great call. I appreciate it. We'll take a break. A lot more to get to, including old comments from Obama.
Thanks for listening to the Laura Ingraham Show podcast. Download new episodes every week at podcastone.com. That's podcastone.com.
Podcast One has new shows on our new app. Check out all the cool features to help you explore our exciting new programming, like America's Lakers podcast with Jay Moore, So Random with Corinne Olympios, Attack Each Day, The Harbaugh's podcast, Not Just Sports with Susie Schuster and Rich Eisen, and Sessions with Randy Jackson, as well as your old favorites like The Lady Gang, Steve Austin, Shaquille O'Neal, and Adam Carolla. Get the new Podcast One app in the App Store, Google Play, or podcastone.com.